Come on, open it. Mom laughed as she handed my brother's twin boys 2 silver envelopes. You'll love what Grandma picked this time. The boys ripped them open, cash spilled out, brand new iPads followed. The room filled with squeals, clapping, and camera flashes. Then Mom turned to me, to us. Her smile thinned like a knife. She reached into her purse, paused, then dropped her hand. She doesn't count as family, she said flatly, glancing at my 6-year-old. No point wasting money. Dad snorted. Yeah, save it for the real grandkids. Laughter. Real, ugly laughter. The balloons shimmered above the table. The frosting on the cake started to blur through my tears. I felt my daughter's small hand clutch mine, confusion flickering in her eyes. She didn't cry. She just looked up and whispered, "Did I do something bad, Mommy?" I smiled for her. My cheeks burned, but I smiled. Of course not, baby, I said softly. We're just done here. No yelling. No scene. I took her hand and walked out past the streamers, past the stairs, past the smell of cheap champagne and fake family. Outside, the air was colder, sharp enough to cut the ache in my throat. I buckled her into the car seat, kissed her forehead, and watched the glow of the birthday candles fade through the window. My name is Eden Vale, I'm 34. And that night, the word family died for me. I drove home in silence, the road lights slicing through the dark like judgment. I kept thinking, all those years, I paid their bills, helped with loans, bought groceries when Dad's business ventures failed. I thought I was loved. I thought helping made me belong. But love shouldn't feel like a receipt. By midnight, I was at my desk, papers spread, accounts open, hands steady. Every luxury they built on my money, every car, card, and family investment tied to me, I traced it, piece by piece. When I hit cancel on the SUV lease in Mom's name, I didn't blink. When I froze the shared card Dad used for his expenses, I didn't hesitate. And by morning, when their cards declined everywhere, I didn't feel guilt. Just silence. And for the first time in years, it felt like peace. If this ever happened to you, say same in the comments. The first ring came at 6:07 a.m., shrill, desperate, and too early for decency. Then another. And another. By the 5th call, I didn't even glance at the screen. Mom, I murmured, pouring milk into my daughter's cereal. Do you like strawberries today? She nodded sleepily. Her curls glowed gold in the morning light. For the first time in years, breakfast felt quiet, not like the battlefield my parents' house always was. Then the phone buzzed again. Dad this time. Followed by my brother. The text stacked like a storm. What did you do? Our car won't start. The bank said fraud alert? Eden answered the damn phone. I set the phone face down. My daughter giggled when a bird landed on the windowsill, pecking crumbs off the ledge. That tiny sound, the flutter of wings, drowned out all their noise. They always said I was too soft, too forgiving, too emotional to handle real business. But emotion, I've learned, makes you dangerous, once you learn to aim it. By noon, I drove my daughter to school, humming along to her favorite song. My phone kept vibrating, notifications popping up like popcorn, frozen accounts, failed transactions, rejected withdrawals. It wasn't revenge. It was correction. At 1 p.m., my brother finally left a voicemail. His voice cracked between rage and fear. Mom's crying. Dad's furious. They said you'll regret this. Fix it before it gets ugly. I almost laughed. Ugly? They'd shown me ugly for years. Birthdays skipped, Christmas gifts forgotten, my daughter erased from family photos because she doesn't fit the aesthetic. When I picked her up that afternoon, she ran into my arms and said, "Mommy, today was perfect." It was. Because for the first time, I didn't have to beg to be seen. They were finally the ones on their knees. That night, as I turned off my phone, I whispered, "Let them learn what silence feels like." And somewhere across town, I knew, they were learning fast. By the next morning, their silence wasn't peace, it was strategy. That's how they operated, guilt first, gaslight second. At 8:12 a.m., my brother texted. "Mom says you misunderstood. Come over so we can talk like family." Family. That word again, dressed up like it still meant something. I didn't reply. Instead, I scrolled through the banking app and watched another auto payment bounce, their utilities this time. Funny how expensive kindness had become. By noon, my cousin sent a photo. They were all gathered at my parents' house, the family meeting. Coffee cups, crossed arms, fake concern. My mom's face looked red from crying, or maybe rage. Dad's expression? That smug mix of pride and panic. The kind he wore when he realized the world no longer bowed to him. They even pulled out old photos of me, childhood pictures. Probably trying to rewrite history. The same people who called me a burden were now pretending I was beloved. I could almost hear Mom saying, "She's just dramatic, always has been." That's how she excused everything, by painting my pain as performance. That evening, my brother showed up at my gate. His car looked dull without gas, no more free fill-ups. He shouted through the intercom, "Eden, you're destroying this family." I stepped to the camera, calm as still water. "No," I said quietly. "You already did." He slammed his hands against the gate, but I didn't flinch. I simply turned the switch that powered the intercom off. His voice vanished mid-threat. Inside, I found my daughter drawing on the living room floor. A family, stick figures, smiling. She looked up at me. "Can I make them hold hands, Mommy?" I hesitated, then knelt beside her. "Only if they are kind to each other." Her small nod broke something inside me, a quiet truth. She was learning what I never had, that love isn't owed, it's earned. Outside, his engine started. The sound faded down the street. And the silence he left behind was beautiful. By Friday, they'd stopped pretending to care, and started pretending to be victims. Mom's Facebook page lit up with cryptic posts. "Some children forget who raised them. Ungrateful hearts always pay a price." Each one garnished with a sad emoji and an old family photo, me, holding a toddler version of my brother's son. The comments poured in, "Stay strong, Linda. Kids these days." I didn't reply. I just watched. Because letting people expose themselves is more satisfying than any reply could ever be. At work, my coworker Amber glanced at her phone, then at me. "Eden," she whispered. "Your mom's kinda posting stuff about you." I smiled faintly. Let her. What she didn't know was that every cent my parents ever flexed online, the vacations, the investments, the gifts they bragged about, were under my tax umbrella. Meaning their little pity party was funded by my silence. That afternoon, my daughter came home from school holding a handmade card. "It's you and me," she said proudly. "We're a team." I hugged her tight. Her words felt like a lighthouse in the fog. Later that night, as I scrolled through the comments again, one caught my eye, from a family friend who also happened to work at the same local bank. "Linda, maybe it's time people knew whose accounts were really tied to whose." That line made my pulse stop for a second. It was happening. The truth was slipping out, not from me, but from someone inside their circle. By the next morning, screenshots started circulating in our small town's community chat. Joint accounts, mismatched signatures, funds labeled family support, Eden Vale. Their narrative shattered in real time. Mom's friends went silent. Dad's poker buddies stopped showing up. And for once, I didn't have to lift a finger. They built their empire on my generosity, and now it was collapsing under the weight of their own arrogance. That night, I whispered to myself, "Revenge isn't loud. It's quiet. And it waits." By Sunday morning, their phone lines were ghosts. No new posts. No photos. No excuses. Just silence, the kind that follows impact. The town had started whispering. My parents' perfect image was unraveling thread by thread. My brother's wife, Paige, was the first to break ranks. She messaged me privately. "I didn't know they used your money for everything. I thought Dad had investments. I'm sorry." I almost typed back, "Sorry doesn't refund childhoods," but stopped. Some battles don't need reopening, especially when the world's already watching. At noon, I got an alert, "Joint Family Fund, flagged for review." The bank was officially investigating. Every hidden transfer, every falsified expense labeled under my name was being audited. The walls they'd built with my trust were now being measured, piece by piece. By evening, my brother showed up again, this time quieter, shoulders hunched. He stood outside the gate like a man realizing the throne he inherited was made of paper. "Eden, please," he called out. "Mom's, she's not eating. Dad's losing it. Can't we fix this? I stepped outside, arms folded. Fix what, Ryan? The lie, or the lifestyle? He swallowed, eyes glassy. They just want things normal again. I nodded slowly. So do I. But my normal isn't theirs anymore. Behind him, his phone buzzed. I caught a glimpse of the screen. Bank of Westbridge, account permanently closed. His face drained of color. For a moment, pity tried to crawl back into me. The same pity that once kept me paying their bills, smoothing their chaos, protecting their pride. But pity's a luxury for the naive. I turned to leave. He whispered, "You're becoming just like them." That made me stop. I looked back, calm and cold. No, Ryan. I'm becoming what they taught me, just smarter. The gate clicked shut behind me. Inside, the lights flickered on. My daughter was waiting with her favorite storybook. "Can we read the one where the queen takes back her crown?" she asked. I smiled. "We're living it, sweetheart." They showed up 3 days later, both of them. Mom in her pearls, Dad in his blazer that smelled faintly of whiskey and ego. The front gate camera blinked red as they stood there, side by side, pretending to be dignified when all they had left was pride. "Eden," Mom's voice crackled through the intercom. "Enough is enough. Let us in." I stood inside the foyer, calm, barefoot, coffee in hand. "Why?" I asked. "You already made it clear we're not family." Her jaw tightened. "We didn't mean her." "Don't," I cut her off. "Say my daughter's name like it's dirt." Dad leaned closer to the mic. "You think you can just take everything back? Those cars, those accounts, we earned those." Earned? I almost laughed. With whose paychecks? Whose nights working overtime? Whose credit you used to fund your vacations? His silence told me everything. "Open the door," Mom snapped, her composure cracking. "You can't embarrass us like this. Everyone's talking." "That's the beauty of truth," I said softly. "It doesn't need me to speak anymore." Behind them, the street shimmered with heat, and the neighbor across the road peeked from behind her curtain. I knew the scene would spread faster than wildfire. Mom's voice trembled now. "We raised you." I met her gaze through the camera lens. "No, you used me." For a long, quiet moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the low hum of the wind, the steady tick of the garden clock. Then Dad muttered something sharp under his breath and pulled her away. As their car drove off, I didn't feel triumph, just release. The kind that comes after years of holding your breath. Later that night, I found my daughter asleep on the couch, her small hand clutching one of my old necklaces, the one my mother once called cheap. Now it shimmered like a medal of survival. I whispered to myself, "Let them taste the world without me." And for the first time in my life, I didn't need their approval, just my peace. A week later, Karma came knocking, politely, but loud enough for the neighborhood to hear. The first rumor hit the town paper: former local businessman under financial review. That was Dad. The second? A foreclosure notice on the house they'd bragged about for years. Their empire wasn't just cracking, it was caving in. Mom's friends, the same ones who used to praise her perfect family, stopped visiting. She posted one final, desperate photo, an old one of us at the beach, captioned "Family is forever." It got 2 likes. Both from strangers. I didn't gloat. I just watched it all unfold, quiet as snowfall. Then one evening, Paige showed up again, clutching a small box. "Your mom wanted me to give you this," she said. "She can't face you herself." Inside was a bracelet, tarnished silver, one I'd made as a child from cheap beads, and a charm that read "Love Always." I remembered the day I gave it to her. She'd laughed and said, "Maybe when you learn to make real jewelry." Now, decades later, it came back, dull, but whole. "Why give it now?" I asked. Paige shrugged. She said she finally understands. I set the bracelet on the table. Understanding doesn't fix damage. It just makes you realize how deep it went. That night, I checked my accounts one last time, not out of revenge, but closure. Everything was transferred cleanly, everything under my name alone. No traces left for anyone to exploit again. Before bed, my daughter crawled beside me. "Mommy," she whispered, "are they still mad?" I brushed her hair gently. "Maybe. But anger fades when truth stays. She nodded sleepily. Then we won. Her words echoed in the quiet, soft, but absolute. Because she was right. Winning wasn't about watching them fall. It was about standing tall without them. As the house settled into stillness, I looked at that bracelet on the table, a relic of what used to be love, and whispered, I don't need their version anymore. The invitation arrived a month later, cream paper, gold ink, like nothing had happened. Family dinner. Let's start fresh. I almost laughed. Starting fresh was easy for people who'd never been burned. Still, I went. Not for them, for closure. When I walked into the restaurant, every head turned. My parents sat at the long table, smaller somehow. The confidence that once filled the room around them had drained out, leaving only apology-shaped smiles. Mom rose slowly. Eden, she whispered, voice brittle. You look good. I nodded. I am. Dad cleared his throat. We just want to put everything behind us. What's done is done. What's done? As if betrayal was a spilled drink. I looked at them, really looked. The people who once towered over my life now looked like strangers wearing their own regrets. I forgave you already, I said softly. Mom blinked. You did? Yes. The moment I stopped needing your approval. The table went silent. Even my brother couldn't look up. The waitress set down the check, and when Dad reached for it, his card declined again. He looked at me, almost expecting help. I just smiled politely and paid for my meal. My meal, not theirs. As I stood to leave, Mom whispered, We're still your family. I turned back, eyes calm. Then start acting like it. Outside, the night air felt clean. The city lights shimmered against the car window like quiet applause. My daughter's laughter echoed from the back seat as she held her new toy, one I'd bought with my own money, my own peace. I realized then, revenge hadn't destroyed me. It had refined me. You don't always burn bridges to win. Sometimes, you just stop crossing theirs. As I drove away, I looked once in the rearview mirror, at the restaurant shrinking behind us, at the family I once begged to see me. They finally did. But from a distance.